Hi, this is Bob Burg, co-author of The Go-Giver. If you want to learn how to use your small axe to build an empire, you should be listening to the Small Axe Podcast with my good friend Nico.
Hey guys, it's your boy Nico here from the Small Axe Podcast. I want to show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. You see, not everybody begins their investing career with millions of dollars, a huge network of investors, or the knowledge necessary to become successful in this space, and that's okay. What I focus on here on this podcast is helping you hone your skills, sharpen your tools to become the best investor that you can be. Now, I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to me or the guest, feel free to do so. Love you guys.
Okay, Small Axe community, it's me, Nico, and I'm back for another fun episode. So today I have a very special guest with me, really cool guy. I read his book, hint, hint, he's a writer, and I saw him on a meetup years ago, and I've been trying to get him on my show. It just hasn't really happened for a couple of years, but I'm very excited to get him onto my show today because what he's going to talk about and what he's going to share and his philosophy about life is phenomenal. So without further ado, Bob Burg, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nico. Great to be with you.
I am so excited to have you on today. You know, just what you preach and what your principles are phenomenal. And I want just in case my listeners are not informed of who you are, maybe you can give us a little bit of background of how you got to where you are today and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I began as a broadcaster, first on radio and then television. I was the late night news guy for a very, very small ABC affiliate in the Midwest. And then I wasn't very good at it, so it wasn't long before I needed to get another job. So I got into sales and failed miserably for the first few months because I had no formal sales training, no sales training at all, and apparently neither did the company that hired me because the advice was go in and sell, and so really floundered for a little bit. And fortunately, I was in a bookstore one day looking for something. I didn't know what. And remember, this is 40 years ago. So not everybody knew about all the personal development and sales materials. You didn't know unless you knew, and I didn't. But I was looking for something, and I came across a couple of books. One was by Zig Ziglar and another by Tom Hopkins, two of the icons in the sales space to this day. And I got their books and I truly devoured them. At first, just the fact that they were books on how to sell. I mean, this was mind-blowing to me. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. And so I just really began studying them. And within a few weeks, my sales began to go through the roof. And really the only reason, because there was no significant difference in me from 3 weeks earlier than 3 weeks after I got the books. But now I had a methodology, right? Now I had a system. And I personally define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles, the key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired result of B, then all you need to do is A and continue to do A and continue to do A, and you'll get the desired result of B. Of course, you teach people how to do this all the time, and if they plug into your system, they're going to probably be very successful, right? Mm-hmm. So, so that began a neat period. But what I really loved the most about it was the personal development that came with it, because now that the suggestions were read How to Win Friends and Influence People and The Magic of Thinking Big and Think and Grow Rich and Psycho-Cybernetics and As a Man Thinketh and The Greatest Salesman in the World, right? So you start coming to realize that success is really an inside job. I mean, it manifests itself outwardly, of course, but it begins in here, actually here, and then here, right? And so I just loved it. And then, eventually worked my way up to sales manager of another company down the line and began teaching others what was working for me. So now for the past almost 35 years, I've been doing that for a living and, really enjoying it.
Oh, that's wonderful, Bob. I think that however we get there, whatever our path is, however we get there is what it is. But I love the fact that you found those books because I have a similar journey as well. I found that introspection, or the through just my own self-discovery, through just trips that I've taken, and circumstances in my life, and we all find that, one way or another, or hopefully we do, and we all have our different stories about how we find it. But it's so cool that you were in a bookstore and you just were overpowered and overwhelmed by those wonderful masterpieces. So I love to hear that. um Bob, maybe you could talk a little bit about your book.
Yeah. So The Go Giver is a business parable. So it's a work of fiction that's based on the laws of life, principles of business. It was co-authored by or with a guy by the name of John David Mann, who was a absolutely great entrepreneur himself, but just a brilliant writer. And he was really the lead writer slash storyteller. And the basic premise of the book is that shifting your focus, and this is, I think, really where it all begins, right? Shifting your focus from getting to giving. The name of the book is The Go Giver, right? So shifting your focus from getting to giving. Now, when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. Understanding that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's actually the most financially profitable way as well. And not for some way out there, woo woo, magical, mystical reasons. Not at all. This is actually very logical. It's very rational. Uh, when you're that person, Nico, who can take their focus off of themselves and place it on serving others, discovering what they need, what they want, what they desire, right? When you can move from a self focus to a focus on helping others solve their problems and challenges, when you can move off of you and onto your goal being to move them closer to happiness, well, people feel good about you. They feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you when that's appropriate, but they totally want to tell others about you. They want to be what we call your personal walking ambassador. So that's the underlying premise.
Thanks, Bob. I really appreciate it. And I know that a lot of my listeners and a lot of my friends and colleagues in the multifamily space listen to your book on Audible or audio, or read your book and talk about it. I think, though, there is some misinterpretation, and here's where. I don't know if it's misinterpretation necessarily, but misuse. So some people, including myself, and I found myself doing this, that when I'm maybe perhaps not in the mood or something, and I say, but I need to be a go giver, and I just don't do it properly. It doesn't come from the right place. I think that it has to be a genuine act. Is this true?
Yeah, so there's a couple things about that. One is sure, and we even have the fourth law is the law of authenticity, and this says the most valuable gift you have to give is yourself. And what it basically means is that, and one of the characters, Deborah, in the story, she shared a lesson that she learned very early in her career, and that is that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as those are, and they are, Nico, they're very, very important. They're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people not only feel good about you, they feel very comfortable with you. They feel safe with you. And why wouldn't they? They know who they're getting. And as human beings, we have a desire through human nature to want to make sense of our world, to understand our world. And this is in a world that's often difficult to understand, right? And so we crave that consistency. Dr. Robert Cialdini talks about that in his wonderful book, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, right? That we want to both appear to be consistent, but we demand that in others, right? Who we're going to trust. So without, that without showing up that way, it's very difficult to establish and maintain trust. Now, I think the word authenticity has been very, um, I'd say, maybe misinterpreted in a couple of different ways. Okay, one of them is that, and this is really, I guess, through the advent of social media, but authenticity has come to mean just, no boundaries. Just say or do whatever you want, whatever you feel, and whatever, because, well, I'm being authentic. So that's the highest. I'm not sure about that. In fact, I
Hmm.
would respectfully disagree with that. That would be like the person who says, well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me. And of course, that's baloney. That's hogwash. It simply means that person has an authentic problem he needs to authentically work on in order
Hmm.
to become a better, higher, more effective, authentic version of himself. So we don't want to use authenticity as an excuse for not growing, but use it as motivation and impetus for stepping into our highest self. Now, I personally define authenticity as acting congruently with your values. Okay. And so I think as long as we do that, we're authentic. Now, I think people also confuse authentic with uh transparent. Okay. In other words, transparency is the end all be all. Well, by the way, most of the time transparency is great, but it's not always appropriate. And let
Hmm.
me explain what I mean. uh, let's say your highest value when you deal with customers or prospective customers or clients or people you might be doing a real estate transaction with, what have you. Let's say your highest value is working with them according to how they want to be worked with, which is what we should do in sales, because it's always about the other person. That doesn't mean we're phony, but it does mean we respect how they want to be worked with. Now, let's say you get out of bed that day and you just feel awful. Okay, you slept wrong, your neck is killing you, you're miserable, you'd rather be anywhere but meeting with someone, but you've got to meet with this person. Now, as you've gotten to know this person, they're the type who they're a nice person, but they're not a real warm, fuzzy person. When they see you at the beginning of a meeting, and you say, hi, they're going to say, how are you? And they expect you to say, good, thanks. How are you? And then get to work. Okay. We might not be like that, but that's how they are. And as our client, we need to respect that. Now, if you were going to be totally transparent, right? Then when he asks you, how are you? You would have to say, oh man, I got to tell you, my neck is killing me. I am miserable right now. I don't even want to be here talking to you. Now, that would be totally transparent, but it
Hmm.
wouldn't be authentic, right? Because your highest value is treating people with respect, right? Respecting the way they want to work with you. Now, later when you go to your chiropractor and she says, Nico, how are you? And now it's very appropriate for you to say, oh, my neck is killing me. I'm in pain. I need help. I'm miserable, right? What have you. So, we want to make sure that we respect the concept of authenticity really for what it is.
That's wonderful, Bob.
And that's where I think when you ask, what if I don't feel like I want to? Well, sometimes we do the thing without feeling like it, but that doesn't
Hmm.
mean we're authentic. It means what we're doing is we're stepping into how we want it to feel. Action precedes feeling. And I remember first reading that in Dr. David Schwartz's classic uh, The Magic of Thinking Big. I think he wrote that in 1958, the year I was born, so 66 years ago. And what he said is, people think you got to feel a certain way in order to act a certain way. No, you don't. You act, and when I say act, I don't mean phonily. I mean you act as in take action to feel a certain way. If you're not feeling really well, then get up, walk fast, walk tall, walk with purpose. You'll start feeling better. And I'm
Hmm.
not, of course, talking about an emotional issue where you should have professional help with. No, I'm saying about a a, a regular day that we just don't feel like we are particularly motivated or whatever. Sometimes you just got to do the thing. And sometimes, someone strikes you the wrong way and you don't have an immediate good feeling about that person. Well, does authenticity mean you insult this person or decide just to not like them? No. It simply means you're going to look for something about them that you like, and you're going to
Yes.
focus on that area, and hopefully you'll come to like that. And maybe you won't. Maybe you will, though. Right. So
Hmm.
authenticity is acting congruently with our highest values.
I love that, Bobby. And you mentioned in their values, and do 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 people really? I don't know if many people have their values spelled out. Is there a formula or a way that you kind of help guide people to kind of find their values or what their true core values are?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think most people have them spelled out because I don't think most people ever consciously think about them.
Hmm.
Okay. But I've seen lately there have been oh, and I'm trying to think of the person's last name. His first name is Robert, and I am not remembering his last name, but he actually put together a course on how to discover your values. There's also a great book, and I'm not coming up with the name, and I so apologize, but they are out there. So I would suggest to people to do a search, do an internet search on, you know, finding your values, discovering your values, determining your values, and it's going to come up. But yes, there's a process for going through it, and and what these people have done is they've listed tons of different values, character traits, strengths, weaknesses, what have you, right? And you go through them and you kind of mark down, you maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, and you find out what are the ones that are tens, and then you kind of even decrease them more because there's also a system, that some can be conditional in terms of how they relate to something else. So let's say, for example, a high value of yours is honesty. Okay. Now, does that mean you're going to be 100% honest all the time in every situation? Well, in terms of finance and ethics, yeah, yes, you would. But in terms of hurting someone's feelings unnecessarily, no, you probably wouldn't.
Hmm.
Right. If somebody says, oh, what do you think of my newborn baby? And you do not think that's an attractive baby, right? Well, if honesty is right, your highest value without any, kind of a disclaimer to it or whatever, it's going to be, well, that's an ugly baby, right? Of course, you're not going to do that because that baby's breathtaking, beautiful, wonderful,
Hmm.
right? Of course. So, we've got to, temper what we're doing and understand the nuance. In other cases, honesty is absolutely. There are sometimes you would without question not veer even you know a centimeter from it. So that's what we do when we determine our values, and we kind of put them in a pecking order and know where they stand and in what circumstances, and we go from there.
That's wonderful, Bob. I have I want to do a little scenario. So what me and my listeners in the multifamily space, we have my favorite part of multifamily is the acquisitions. And to do that, you need to have good broker relationships, or if you're going through brokers, or you need to have good relationships with the sellers directly.
Sure.
Now, in the back of my mind, I want to land this deal. So it's hard for me to, when we speak about authenticity, and maybe you can clarify again, because it is probably something that needs to be drilled into our heads frequently, but there's an ulterior motive there. So like part of me is saying, I just want to get this deal. So am I acting phony or am I acting fake, or is this ulterior motive tainting my go-giving mentality because I want to provide value to this seller as the person that can buy from him, so, or her, let's say. So I want to find out what their needs are so that in the end, and help them get there in the end, in the hoping that I can perhaps buy this deal.
Sure.
And it doesn't always work out that way, but I have to continue that mentality of, yes, just continue to give to these people, continue to give to these sellers, that potentially I will lose 90% of these deals, but potentially they might sell to one of, sell one to me.
So let's look at a couple of principles and concepts there because it's a great question. So first is we want to the best we can, avoid the duality of the either or. It's what John and I call the treacherous dichotomy or the false dilemma. And a false dilemma can be defined as the unnecessary use of the word or. Like when you're a little kid and somebody says, hey, when you grow up, do you want to be wealthy or happy? As though it's one or the other. Of course, the answer is yes, both. Right. And so here it's, well, am I being a giver, a good person, or am I just interested in my, making money for myself? Well, here's the neat thing. The only way, and this is in a free market-based environment, which you're dealing in, free market simply meaning no one's forced to do business with you, right? So in a free market-based environment, the only way you can earn money is by pleasing the other person, right? Which is great. That's wonderful. This is why John and I say money is simply an echo of value, right? You have to provide value to them. In exchange, you're going to earn a lot of money. A wonderful thing. Okay, now, when I spoke at conferences, because I don't do so much anymore, I do them virtually sometimes, but I very rarely get on a plane. 66 years old. It's amazing the things you just don't want. You don't do if you don't have to, right? You don't want to do them anymore. And so I always loved speaking, but I never really liked the flying, the traveling ever. And so, it's like, I just don't do it anymore. Long way of saying, when I would speak at really large conferences with tons of salespeople around, right? The first thing I'd often say is this: nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet.
Mm.
They're not going to buy from you because you need the money. They're not going to buy from you because you would like the sale to happen. And they're not going to buy from you just because you're a nice human being. They're going to buy from you because they believe that ultimately they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And it's the same every time you deal with a broker or with a potential, seller. Okay. So you have to put aside your self-interest because they're not buying for your self-interest. In fact, the most self-interested thing you can do is put aside your own self-interest and focus on giving this person, right? Discovering what they need, want, desire. What's the problem you're helping them solve? How are you moving them closer to happiness? And when you do that, the money comes.
Bob, I tell you, that's relieving. As a matter of fact, that when we switched that word in the beginning, when you were talking from or to and, right? Well, you can have both, and that is just relieving because I'm not a bad person for having an ulterior motive or not necessarily.
You're a human being. We are, right? As human beings, we're self-interested. It's how we're built. It's how our cave person ancestors survive day to day. And it's been hardwired into us. I love what my friend, leadership authority, Dan Rockwell, he says, self-interest is human nature. Other interest is leadership, right? So when we can temporarily suspend our self-interest and place it on that other person, again, it's what works for everybody.
That's wonderful. Bob, this is a phenomenal conversation. I'm going to cut it short, though. And before we do that, I would love for you to answer my challenging and crazy and wild question that people get stumped on. And then we're going to get the listeners some form of either reaching out to you or getting access to your book or whatever, however you want to share that. So here goes the question. Let's imagine it was 100 years from now. You have great-great-grandchildren, and they wanted to write a book about you and highlight your life. Bob, what would you want them to title this book?
I would say The Encourager. The Encourager. I think that's really what I was put on earth to do. I think that's kind of who I am. I try to make people feel genuinely good about themselves. That could even be the subtitle.
What a wonderful way to be. That's somebody that I want to spend time with. So you'd be a great great-grandfather.
Thank you.
So let's get the listeners some form of either reaching out to you or finding your book or both.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Just Burg, BURG.com.
Beautiful. Well, as always, I love listening to what you have to preach and what you have to say. And I truly valued today's conversation. And I know my listeners are going to get a ton of value as well. So, Bob, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Nico. Thank you for having me.
All right. Hey, Small Axe community. I would like to say thank you for listening to another episode of my podcast where we show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. Now, if you liked what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. Also, if you want to get in touch with me, go to my website at smalaxecommunities.com. Book a call with me. And until the next episode, keep sharpening those axes.